So Nintendo has blessed us with the partner showcase of July 2025. I gotta say, I'm a little excited, and I figured now would be as good a time as any, even if I'm a couple days late on giving my 2 cents on the entire situation. First and foremost, we have the third Monster Hunter Stories game, and I never played either of the first two games. I always kind of meant to just to experiment and try a little bit, because I can remember at the time they were brand new, like the first couple in particular. Friends of mine would ask me why I was so curious, and I remember looking at them and saying, think for a moment. Name one turn based RPG that Capcom is actively supporting. And, they would want to say Breath of Fire, that's there, but when's the last time we've gotten a Breath of Fire game? Um, Besides that, we got the usual Madden, we got Just Dance, we got, oh geez, what else was in there? Apex Legends, Star Wars Outlaws, just kind of doing a quick fire rapid round, whatever you want to call it on this. All the sports titles, your Just Dance, Apex Legends, I don't really care too much, so I'm not going to go too big into those. For someone, those are their main games that they can't get enough of, so good for them. There's an audience for it. But besides that, Hello Kitty Island Adventure, that's cute. Uh, the other main highlight, though, for me personally, is finally getting Once Upon a Katamari. I remember hearing there was like a leak of this game not that long ago, so I was like, oh, are we finally getting it? Is this going to be the first Katamari game in however many years? And boom, they make that the very next announcement after Monster Hunter. So, at least to say, I'm happy on that note. I think it's cute how they're going with the time travel aspect. I I don't know why that's so odd for me to think about why time travel is new to the series. You would think something like that has been there all along, which is how wacky and out of the blue it's been. But seeing as how it's brand new this time around, like, okay, that's cute. That's fun. I can get behind it. I do hope the local multiplayer is a little bit stronger than the first couple of games that we got on Switch. Because I can just remember playing the first one, Christmas Eve one year for a little bit. And we'd pick up all the items and then it just turned into smacking each other around the whole time. And, as fun as that can be, it doesn't last. And depending on who you're playing with, they're like, oh, stop it. I just want to get the biggest ball, don't bother me. And it's like, okay, I'm moving on. We got the new Sparking Zero game coming out to Switch. I call it new, but as far as I'm aware, it's just a port. I'm sure the Dragon Ball fans are happy with that. Most people I know who did say they played it were like, yeah, it's fine, but it's no Xenoverse, it's no Fighter Z, It's there if you really just like your Dragon Ball Z junk food, so, it caters to its audience. I'll stay in my lane with that one. Plants vs. Zombies remake is coming out as well. It's cute. I don't know if I'm gonna go out of my way and get that one in particular, just knowing myself. I played this on the DSiWare version back when that was a thing in the day. I think that version had a exclusive mini game where you drag the stylus around or something to like you had like a JPEG of a brain you would use to lure zombies into a cage, and I think I actually saw it there in the trailer somewhere. I saw one of the mini games at least, but for all I know, those were in every version with that one exception. Aside from that, what else do we have on this list? Checking over my notes, just even as I'm recording now, in fact. Pac-Man World 2, oh my goodness, probably the second big takeaway from this that I've been hearing even more people talk about than Katamari, funny enough. This was one of those childhood games I had and never finished, being a bit of a destructive kid. The disc got damaged in some way, and once you got to the volcano world, it would just crash and you couldn't progress, so being able to finally get this, I am a little tickled, given it's only been like 3 years after the remake of the first Pac-Man World. Namco did like a survey for people who did play the first one. They're like, I remember specifically it said, do you want a remake of Pac-Man Worlds 2 and 3? And of course, I'm just like, yes, I will happily gobble up a port or remake of games from my childhood that haven't seen the light of day in 20 years. It's just very happy day all around on that one. Heck, my memories of the game only go to such a certain extent because the volcano, as far as I'm aware, is like just after the halfway point. So it's like seeing the footage of the underwater levels. I was just like, oh my god, that's right. There was a water world that I never got to in that game. That's crazy. Uh, Without spending too much time on Pac-Man, we got the new Final Fantasy Tactics port. I'm excited to play it. I've always kind of wanted to give this game a try between the Game Boy Advance version and the DS version and all that, but it's never come out at the right time that I could play it. So the fact we're getting it is cool. I just wish we got the typical, what's the word I'm looking for? The typical enhancements you would think that would come with a port like that, like new story or classes that have been added in over time in various versions. But I heard somewhere there was a story where they lost the original source code, similarly to what's it called, Kingdom Hearts 1. So I'm like, all right, fine, I'll take it, I'll buy it, but I'll definitely wait for a sale on that one. Persona 3 Reload got announced for Switch 2. That's fun. I might pick it up just to finally say I have a physical copy, because if you're buying games on Steam, boy, is that, a trip. No matter how cool your library is or how cheap you get, it's like, but I don't own any of this. I only hope that they can include the episode Igus content in the base package, but somehow I doubt we're getting that. They showed off a bit more of Age of Imprisonment, which, I'm sure it'll be fine. I really like Hyrule Warriors. Age of Calamity didn't impress me as much as the original did, but the Koei kind of won me back with how they handled Three Hopes. So I'm willing to guess if they take the same route as the lessons they learned between Fire Emblem Warriors 1 to Three Hopes, they can kind of regain the focus a bit and bring things back to basics between Age of Calamity and Age of Imprisonment. So, I'm hopeful, but I'm keeping my expectations tempered. Definitely going to be the holiday game I feel like a lot of people will be grabbing as far as first party Nintendo stuff. Was that this year? I think that's this year. Going over my notes here. A little embarrassing not remembering that off the top of my head, but this winter, so definitely feel like that's going to be the Christmas hit for anyone that hasn't been able to get a Switch 2 or Donkey Kong by that point. But as of recording this, tariffs just went up again, and all the first-party accessories are now like $5 to $10 more on top of things, so who knows how this will go for Nintendo going into the Christmas season. Moving on, we got Borderlands 4. I like Borderlands 3, as cool as it was gameplay-wise. Even my friends that are big Borderlands fans have been kind of, tepid on this one. They're just like, you know what, if it comes out and people like it, I'll buy it, I'll play it. I might even do a couple runs, but, it's Borderlands. You played the first couple, you played them all effectively. You don't need endless, food to nourish you on your looting and shooting adventure. Aside from that, what else is in this thing? We got the cozy campfire, or chilling by the fire. It had some kind of simple camping name like that. It looks cute and kind of weird, but if this is one that I feel is mostly just there to play around with all the peripherals, like they want Nintendo to clearly put some effort into the camera. At least that was my perspective on it. It's like, hey, you guys got this camera, you're expecting a lot of people to buy this. We'll make a game that requires it because you already got Mario Party doing it, so we'll put it into our game. And it's like, great. Can't really say I'm going to get much use out of the camera. The microphone, maybe. I've had my Switch 2 since launch day. I've yet to use voice chat just because my friends and I use Discord more than anything, but I'm sure to the kids out there that don't have access to all the technology conceivable, this might be some fun, but haven't really looked too much into this. It just, cutesy survival game. So we got Hella coming out as well. Didn't really listen too much to the direct footage on this one. At least as far as the initial presentation, I look back on it a few days later, and it seems serviceable. It's gonna have like that open world adventure vibe with some platforming and collectibles. Definitely the closest we're getting to a modern like collectathon sort of game that we haven't really seen much of since the GameCube PS2 era. So it'll tackle an itch for somebody. Just presentation wise, it doesn't seem like something I'm going out of my way to grab. There's Chronos. I'm gonna be super honest with this one. That one truly threw me for a loop. I thought we had Isaac from Dead Space walking out, and we were getting like a port of the railgun shooter Dead Space game. I think there was a rail shooter game. I might be getting a mix up a little bit, but super interesting here. Just the whole vibe of puzzle solving and shooting, trying to manage your enemies as they get stronger upon desecrating each other's corpses. It's like, okay, you know, if this is something I do play, I feel like this is something I'll play a lot later in time, like out of a Humble Bundle or something, but definitely hopeful that the people who go out of their way and grab it at launch are just as excited about it, and it makes it meets that expectation. Excuse me. Uh, Not much else I can really say about it. Aesthetically, it looks really pleasing. The time travel mechanic, that's a take I don't typically see enough in shooting games. I'm sure Titanfall people are looking at me like, "Hey, Mister, that was the coolest part of Titanfall 2," and it's like, yeah, no, I agree definitely. So here's to Chronos. I hope that one has a good future ahead of it. After this, we have, of course, Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2 coming to Switch 2. I got Kiwami 1 on the Switch 1. It was fine. I definitely waited until after they had the first hotfix when a lot of people were talking about frame rate issues during certain late game bosses. And, you know, the Switch 1 Pro controller, I don't really like for big button mashy games outside of something like Warriors games. But even then, that's kind of specific. So when the Switch 2 did drop, the first thing I did was play Kiwami 2, or excuse me, Kiwami 1 on there just to see the difference, and it was just a night and day improvement. So I'm a little tickled by the end of this trailer. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're also giving you an upgrade pack, supposedly, for the Switch 2. There's going to be the Switch 2 version. I don't know if it's going to be a free update or there'll be like an upgrade pack like Nintendo's doing with their first party games. I've heard the upgrade pack is what they're going to do, but I've yet to find that confirmed anywhere on the internet as of recording. Kiwami 2, seeing it run on Switch, it's definitely something I'm going to get for the conversational piece out of it in time. Played through all the Yakuza games a couple years ago, and just seeing Kiwami 2 specifically again, it's like, oh my god. I remember that being one of the better games in the franchise, just in general, right? So having an excuse to go back and play it is definitely one I'm looking forward to. Um, Man, just it looks a lot prettier than I remember it too. I don't know if it was because my computer at the time wasn't as good as the one I have now, or if maybe just the Switch 2 really does just brighten it up that much more, but that's definitely a day one purchase for me. Speaking of Sega, I'm really hoping they know to put the games on the physical cartridge now. They've released like 5 or 6 games on the system, and they're all game key cards, and it's just like, please, Sega, I know y'all listen to your feedback every once in a while. Let this be one that you just foot the bill on. Put your games on the cartridges, but, I'm just Denison of the internet, just chanting into a microphone, so what do I really know? There's going to be the new Shinobi game, that's one I'm also excited for. Going to pre-order that pretty soon. Been wanting to snag that up for a little while now, but just haven't gotten around to doing it just yet. Uh, Seeing as how it's made by the Streets of Rage 4 developers, I'm very curious how that's going to go. Uh, Man, I really want Shinobi to be good. That's one of the big ones since, a couple years ago, Sega had their whole revitalization project where they announced like the new Crazy Taxi and Golden Axe and so on and so forth. It's like, okay, cool, we're finally getting all these. Shinobi's gonna be the first one. It looks good. I hope it plays as good as it looks. If this goes really well, I can only see this as the start of many more things to come. If not, I'll be a little scared, but given how many IPs are in that catalog, I don't think we need to be as concerned. Lastly, we got the Square Enix games, of course, the Adventures of Elliot, which it kind of reminds me of Secret of Mana a little bit. I'm sure that's the comparison a lot of people are making. It's just outside of the Mana games, I can't really think of another reference point for this kind of like top-down isometric adventure game like this. Oh man, just look at these lava effects. They're just incredible. Uh I always kind of had the perception that had the Kingdom Hearts series never come to fruition, Kingdom Hearts was what the Mana series would have become over time, and then this would have just been an extension of that. But given history has gone the way that it has, and me just shooting out my crackpot theory here, I really want to believe that this is going to be something that a lot of people are gonna try out. Just we'll have to see when it comes. Square Enix fans will of course gobble up so much, and the amount of day one purchases I've made for Square Enix games that either really blow my mind or really don't, I've kind of gotten the perception that they can be a bit polarizing at times. So I'm hoping this is, one of the better things that they put out. Given how they're saving it for the end of the direct, I'm hopeful, but time will tell, of course. I do find it a little bit interesting as well. The fairy character is actually going to be running around with you and helping you in the hub world, kind of like a Zelda game almost. Not necessarily getting new abilities that will help you run about the, overworld. At least not from what I could gather from watching the trailer by itself, but just having something that doesn't take away from or in turn leave the entire game to be entirely combat focused, giving things some room to breathe. It's like, okay, you know what? I can get behind this. Something to just give you a little bit of variety. That I think that's ultimately what's given me some hope, despite the repetition a lot of RPGs, whether they be action or turn-based, tend to have, where as good as they are, sometimes the combat is all that's there, and that's fine. Just have something else to kind of chew on it. I mean, I feel like that's why so many games have fishing minigames. If you got a good fishing minigame, it's something else for people to ingest while they take in everything else, and that goes on to be so much more memorable. Like, I still think about the fishing game from Final Fantasy 15, just for a reference point. That's just how good that was, and it was something that wasn't just zipping around, hacking up enemies. Lastly, of course, I've said lastly twice now, we got Octopath Traveler 0, which I want to be excited. I really like the first Octopath Traveler. I wanted to get the sequel and just haven't gotten around to doing it. Everyone I knew who did eventually get the second game got it digitally, and I don't have game share with people who own it, so I've just yet to touch it. But, it looks nice, this new one that they got here. I'm wondering if this is just going to be the mobile game again with some slight tweaks, or if they're reworking it in a way to kind of include that story, but still doing its own thing, so it's not a one-to-one, recap with just slightly different gameplay that's not too dissimilar. I am a little tickled Octopath is the one get this kind of treatment first. To an extent, as I say that, I'm thinking about how Kingdom Hearts has kind of announced a lot of projects and then they get canceled in turn, so just seeing how that could go with, if Octopath Zero does well, I'd like to think we get to the day where Kingdom Hearts can have its own turn at it, where they turn the Union Cross mobile game into a full-on side game that can recap the story condensely and make it nice and pretty, but, we'll see. All in all, I'd say this was a fairly decent direct. Give it maybe a, good C tier, like high C, at most a low B, but I feel like that could be just a little too generous, but I'm the guy who likes to play everything, so there's a lot I could chew on here that I'm looking forward to in the future, so who knows. If you're still here listening to me ramble this entire time, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys next time. Y'all have a lovely evening.